Damien is an undercover cop working a case to bring down a huge drug-dealing operation. He pulls up to the gang HQ and gets searched before being led to the boss to pick up his next consignment of drugs to sell. After joking with the boss, he reaches for his batch, but the leader comments on his twitchy nature this time around. Damien denies it and even asks if the boss wants to discuss something with him, which he does. The Kingpin alerts his golden boy that they have a snitch in their ranks. Damien looks around to find some Barry men closing in on him, but he plays it cool and offers to deal with the rat with excitement. The boss starts to describe the rat and it fits Damien perfectly, but he still tries to act oblivious till one of the men holds a gun to his head. The cop quickly disarms him and uses it to shoot the boss, who's taken away. Waves of gangers charge at him as he shoots and beats his way through them. The kung fu cop gets hit by a car when trying to find his bearings, but he manages to recover and beat down the one who tried to make him roadkill. After dealing with the last attacker, Damien proceeds to the boss, who crawls suffering from his gunshot wound. The Kingpin slices him with a knife when he tries to apprehend him. He then snickers as he alerts the cop that he has already found out where he lives and comments on how beautiful his wife is. A look of dread washes over Damien's face as he rushes home to find the place already broken into. He makes it into his vandalized home looking for signs of his wife, only to see her lifeless body in their marital bed. The devastated husband holds her whilst weeping. At a later time, history teacher Simon settles his class down. While he takes the register, he notices Jaziek is absent for the second time consecutively. Emilia explains that the lad is using drugs. Simon's son Camille also happens to be in his class and receives a call from Jaziek's mom alerting him of her son's passing due to the drugs. Meanwhile, Damien is depressed after his wife's death. The ex-cop spends all his time locked inside drinking himself to sedate his pain. His phone rings, but he ignores the call. It is revealed that Simon is on the other side of the line. The teacher pleads with his old friend for help as he stands in front of Jaziek's house. Damien kind of cleans himself up and makes his way to Simon's house as he drinks the alcohol like it's water. He has dinner with his old friend and his wife as they discuss Jaziek's case as well as the numerous incidents of drug abuse at the school. The teacher alerts the ex-cop of the gang of seniors that usually sell drugs in the open. After they finish eating, the two friends continue their discussion in the kitchen where Simon begs for his help as he feels like he has found the location of their operation. Based on his investigations, it's bigger than it seems. Camille comes down and overhears Damien refusing to help his dad, stating that he can't even help himself, let alone the teacher. The kung fu cop enters a convenience store to stock up on booze where he's pickpocketed by some local hooligans. He makes light work of them when they attack him for requesting his wallet back. In the interim, Simon decides to conduct his infiltration solo. As he tries to pick one of the locks, someone approaches him from behind. The following day, Damien wakes up to news reports of Simon's death. His body was found at a fentanyl manufacturing lab, framing him as the culprit who makes and distributes it to the kids at public schools. His death was made to look like a self-annihilation to create the narrative that he was guilty, that Jaziek died from using his products. Damien rushes to the house to comfort his friend's wife and child as he doesn't believe the fake narrative. With the help of his old connections, he begins his undercover investigation by first getting a chance to apply for his old friend's job. The principal's secretary tries to dissuade him from applying for the job since the school has such a bad reputation. The principal interrupts, taking him to the office to conduct the interview. He explains about the school's narcotic problem, but assures the prospect that it should be resolved now that the manufacturer is dead. And with the appointment of the new security agency headed by Chmielski and his crew, things should be fine. They are soon joined by the assistant principal Agata, who doubles as the Polish teacher. After a brief introduction, he's given the job and is to officially start the following day. The next morning, Yarek and his crew try disrespecting Jaziek's memorial at school, but Damien confronts him about it. He calls on Mammoth, who wants to join the gang to attack the new teacher, but the teacher dodges just as Chmielski and his men halt the commotion. The head of security starts to question Damien, but Agata explains that he's the new history teacher before dragging him away. As she leads him to his class, she explains the situation and introduces him to some of the teachers. Damien enters his hectic class and immediately asserts his authority when he confronts Frog Face, a lad who dropped out 3 years ago and is trying to sneak his way back in now that there's a new teacher. Agata gets word of his presence at the school and calls Chmielski, but before he escorts him out of the class, Frog Face makes some inappropriate comments to the assistant. After school, the principal notices that Damien is staying back late to prepare learning materials and commends him for it. Meanwhile, in the underground parking lot, Agata gets harassed by Frog Face and his boys. During that interval, Damien comes out to find his car tires have been slashed by the students. One of the male teachers advises him to use the underground parking next time, and he offers to give him a lift. The two men arrive to meet the assault. Damien orders Frog Face to let her go, but he holds her at knife point and orders his boys to attack the new teacher. Unbeknownst to them, he's a kung fu master, so he makes light work of the fools, but he sustains a cut on his hand. The delinquent gets scared and releases the teacher before escaping. Agata hugs Damien as she sobs. The two go back up to class where she tends to his cut. She was smitten by his martial might, but he downplays it as a hobby. The fake historian shows her some techniques she can use if she ever finds herself in such a situation again. Agata asks if there is any way she can repay him on some kinky level, but Damien is a high-value man, so he requests she gives him a lift since they slashed his tires. Meanwhile, Frogface is abducted and brought to the beachside where it is revealed that their boss is Chmielski. He punishes him for trying to go behind the gang's back to make some extra money. Yarek orders Mammoth to break his leg as they beat him up. The following day, Damien comes into school to find that his car has been towed away for repair courtesy of the principal. He enters the staff lounge to find the other teachers watching his martial display the previous night from the CCTV cameras. Agata admires him as they serenade him with praise and thanks. Chmielski comments on how easily he took them down before asking who is he really, but he plays the humble historian card. Damien enters the class to find Harry imitating his moves. The students also have the footage and question him on how he acquired the skills. He gives a Bruce Lee quote before Harry asks how to handle oneself in a street brawl. The teacher challenges him to find out what he's got. If Harry wins, there will be no final class exam. The class goes to the gymnasium where he toys with the young lad, showing the difference in their skill. Damien notices that Kamil has finally come back to school, but he leaves when he sees his dad's old friend. He follows him to the changing rooms where he assures him that he knows that his dad was framed and wants to prove it. The angry teen attacks Damien for turning his back on his dad when he came for help, blaming him for his death. The ex-cop feels the same way and it's killing him inside, which is why he's there to get revenge for his friend. He pleads to Kamil to help and keep his identity a secret, but the young lad uses the words Damien used on his dad the night he asked for help before leaving. After school, Agata asks him out on a bar date, which they use to also look through some of the students' work. She brings up Amelia's essay, which describes how her single father raised her and supported her when she got addicted to fentanyl. The two teachers flirt a little when she checks to see how his hand is healing. Damien goes to get them more drinks when a few big men try to give some ladies trouble. He comes to their defense and beats them to the cheering crowd. The teachers leave the bar soon after and she invites him over to her place where they engage in unauthorized lessons. As she goes to get them more alcohol, he notices that she didn't lock the door and she makes the same comments as his deceased wife about him being there to protect her. This triggers flashbacks of the good times he spent with his wife as well as the day he came home to find her dead. The flashback kills his lust and deflates his clown balloon. Agata comes out excited with the drinks to find that he has left, which makes her upset. As he walks back home, he comes across Mammoth dealing drugs, so he aggressively warns him to stop following the bad actors since he has a bright future. The following day, Amelia spots one of her friends buying drugs from the school gang, so she rushes to stop the sale. Shortly after, Yarek and his boys surround her as a punishment for trying to block business and begin to harass her. Kamil sees the commotion and comes to offer his friend aid, but he gets beaten up instead. As the bell rings for the first period, Damien crosses paths with Agata for the first time since he left her high and dry. The assistant principal doesn't exchange pleasantries and proceeds to coldly give him information about the new class registration system before leaving. Class starts when Kamil and a few students come in late. Damien notices the injuries on Kamil's face and tries to find out what happened, but they are reluctant to tell. He figures out that it was an assault from the gang. Seeing his students getting bullied doesn't make him happy, so he offers to teach them how to defend themselves after school. He takes them to an old warehouse where they clean up the place and turn it into a dojo. All the while, Damien was doing his investigations and found the location of one of the gang's stash houses. He anonymously tips the police, who raid the place and apprehend 2 gang members. Chmielski watches him while he watches the raid. One night after a martial arts session with his students, he's attacked by Chmielski's men in balaclava. Although he takes some damage, he manages to fend them off as they come out worse off. The following day at school, he confronts their boss for their little attack, but the students come out of class before anything happens. Yarek suggests another way for them to get rid of the new teacher. They visit Amelia's dad at his shop and try to harass him, but she comes in to see what they want. Yarek shows her Simon's watch, insinuating that they killed him. He instructs her to lie that Damien was inappropriate with her after one of their martial arts sessions. The following day, he comes into school to a hostile look from Agata. The principal confronts him about Amelia's false accusations before suspending him indefinitely till an investigation is complete. Kamil just takes the claims at face value and begins to berate his dad's friend for taking advantage of their trust, while Yarek and his crew laugh at their handiwork. Later that night, Damien sneaks into Amelia's room to find that she has relapsed back into drug use due to the guilt. She explains the conditions of Jarek's threat. Her dad barges into the room and kicks him out, thinking that he's the one enabling his daughter's behavior. Damien later visits Frogface in the hospital as he recovers from the beatdown. After some persuasion, the hooligan hints that the drugs are made in the school. So he goes to Agata's housing, where he manages to take her school keys before she sacks him away. He infiltrates and finds that the science teacher is the one cooking up the drugs for the gang.
Goddamn right.
He tries to get picture evidence, but the glare from the light leads to a bad shot. He tails the van that moves the excess drugs out of the school to a food processing plant. He tries to break into the car, but the security spots the kung fu cop, so he uses his skill to take out his attackers. He calls Agata of his findings, so the following morning, they hold a meeting to get to the bottom of his accusations, but with his poor evidence, he's just escorted out of the building again. Agata decides to visit Emilia again. This time the girl tells her the truth, so she rushes to Damien's place to apologize. He shows her the CCTV footage from the night he infiltrated, but it seems that they have been tampered with. The two later catch up with the science teacher as he packs his shopping. Some say that is when a man is at his most vulnerable. He pins him to the car where he confesses that he cooked the drugs for them because they threatened to kill his family. Chmielewski rides by and assassinates the teacher before he can give too much information. The school later gives the deceased teacher's things to his wife. The principal gives his condolences to her. He calls Agata to clear out Simon's locker too, and as she does, she finds a notepad stuck to the top of his locker. Meanwhile, Emilia comes back to school where she clears Damien's name. The students later come to the dojo where they apologize for their misjudgment. They all rush to the hospital when they get word that Emilia was attacked for retracting her statement. Agata shows Damien Simon's notes, which indicate the location of the gang's main warehouse. The ex-cop solo raids the location, but he's joined by Agata, who wants to help. They find the drugs but get surrounded by Chmielewski and his men. Shortly after, the principal makes his grand entrance as the mastermind behind the whole operation. He fed into the negativity when he realized the school couldn't be changed to anything better, so he gave the students what they wanted. He wears Simon's watch to tease them before taking his assistant away. Mammoth stands forward to confront the gang he wanted so badly to be a part of. He's joined by the rest of the students who overpower the gang. Chmielewski and Damien have their final face-off, and although the villain puts up a good fight, he has a shocking end. The ex-cop catches up to the principal, who has Agata at gunpoint. She uses the technique he showed her earlier to get free, allowing Damien to knock him out. They turn around to leave, but he gets up and removes his concealed gun and shoots the ex-cop. But before he can finish them off, Camel drops a consignment of garden gnomes on him. Damien retrieves his friend's watch from his unconscious wrist. Soon after, they call law enforcement, who take all the criminals into custody. He gives Camel his dad's watch. His mom rushes to check if he's okay while the other students celebrate their victory, bringing the movie to an end.